Hello, Jane.
Hello.
My son asked me a very good question this morning. He'd come out of meditation and said to me, Dad, how do you incorporate and what do you do in your day with the things we're talking about and the things we're learning about and your spirituality? And I thought it was a really good question because I can remember when I first started any form of self-help, which included for me the range of getting help from life teachers, spiritual teachers, psychologists, going to workshops. It seemed like all of that was very separate from my life.
Yes.
And I noticed when I've looked back over the years and people I've been around, that was the case for most people. So an example of this is I'm thinking about there are people who go to churches, temples, who observe and practice their religion. And I look at how we all, generally speaking, live in relationship to our lives, which includes our relationships with people, our relationships with well-being, money, all these things.
Yep.
And for most of my life, it was actually really, for the most part, separate. Because it was all good until something broke loose in me. That's what I mean by it was separate. So, I could relate to a lot of spiritual teachings. I understood them.
Yeah.
Actually, I liked them. It appealed to me. But soon as hell broke loose, it all went out the window.
In your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And hell could be anything. It could be someone driving down the road in a way that's causing me angst, okay? To a money deal going wrong, or to, being told you got cancer, or your relationship's not working. That's breaking loose, okay? And so my answer to him was, I said, look, I know I'm in a physical body. This is not about not being in a physical body. For me, what it's practicing is being a non-physical being, being eternal awareness in a physical body. And he said, okay, what do you mean by that, Dad? I said, well, first of all, I want to ask you a question. I said, are you aware that you are experiencing the way life is coming to you? Your baseball, your relationships with, Mom and I, your friends, your academic stuff, all the stuff. Are you aware that it's happening to you? And he said, yes, now I am, but I never used to really see it that way. I didn't realize, actually, I'm the one this is happening to. Because most people don't. They only think it's happening to me in the negative way, meaning, why is this happening? It's unfair. But they don't actually have an awareness around what's interesting. It's happening to me. It's maybe not happening to her. It may not be happening. This may not be their experience. It's my experience. This is happening.
Yeah, I think when you're young, particularly, you just think this is reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're not really questioning, you might be feeling happy or sad or whatever you're feeling, and things might be happening, school or baseball or whatever it might be, and this is just what reality is.
It's just life, yeah.
It's life,
exactly.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's not just when you're young. I think most people do. Most people, the fact is, I don't care how anyone wants to call it, people look at the world, their world, and they believe it's real. This is how it is. So I'm going to fight against it, or I'm going to go with the flow. Okay. And I said to him, so what I do is I go through my day reminding myself, practicing consciously, remembering all the relationships I have, everything I relate to, people, events, my health, whatever you want to call it, my bank account, it doesn't matter. We are relating to something.
Yeah.
All of that is actually what a spiritual path is really about, because all the time there's going to be contrast. It's very rare that there isn't contrast. And I know some people seek to live without contrast. And I can remember Jack Boland, who was a wonderful teacher in my life, talking about how he knew so many people who wanted to live a life without having feelings. Didn't want to, particularly negative feelings, okay? People don't want to feel angry. People don't want to feel sad. People don't want to feel scared. So he did something only Jack would do, which is he arranged for his group of the seminar that he was doing to meet the next day at an address that he gave everyone. And be there 9 o'clock or whatever it was. And when everyone arrived there, it was a cemetery. And he said, they don't have any feelings. Is that what you want?
Powerful. Powerful.
They don't have any feelings. And it's very powerful. And the funny thing is, what I interpreted all of that at that time was, so therefore I mustn't feel those things. Okay. That I interpreted it as that. Okay. Not that you're not going to have them, because I realized I'm going to have them. I'm having them. But for me, I think it became a little bit about, I don't want to act out of them, because I knew that didn't work. I didn't like being angry, let's say, and therefore taking it out on people. I didn't like feeling a sense of, I want to get my own back. I want to get revenge. I want justice. So I'm going to act out where I see it not happening. For me, that didn't feel okay. I always knew that. I had a conscience around hurting people, around doing things that just weren't right, even though it felt like, but I'm justified. So I thought, well, then the best thing to do is get rid of the feelings. So I've already talked about this. I spent a lot of time in the name of spirituality or God, is that I've got to either suppress these feelings or do something about them, change them or fix them. And going back with my son, I said to him, so, what I have today, what I carry today, is I carry an enormous energy field of contrast, because I built it up over 40 years invested in it. Meaning, from when I wake up in the morning to when I go to bed at night, I now know in my day I'm going to have thoughts and feelings that come up on a continuous basis that I don't like. They don't feel good. But there's a big difference now. In other words, while I'm awake, I would say 80% of the time I'm aware of the contrast. I can be sitting here on a given day and it's really peaceful. There's no one even in sight. I'm on my own, and suddenly this tsunami of stuff comes up in me. I now understand that because of energy. I've now finally, at the latter stages of my life, got to understand that it's all about energy. So the energy, I said to him, is there. My relationship to it has dramatically changed over the years, and that's what allows me to have a better quality of life now, because there will be things that will trigger drama in me. Someone may do something and I may have a reaction to it, but the speed at which I become awake in that moment to what's going on and just let it go
has speeded up
enormously. And if I, as a result of that, conducted myself in a way like I did yesterday with my one son, I kind of jumped on his case for doing something really stupid, and what he did do was stupid. But I wasn't happy with my response to it. So I kind of went back, in 3 minutes, within 5 minutes, and said, look, the way I spoke to you was actually not right. And I wasn't, believing me, I was not yelling, shouting, or mean. I said, why did you do that? It's ridiculous. Look at what you just done. But it's incredible how much of a drama it created around the environment. Okay, and he was great because he just said, "Hey, why don't you just chill? I messed up. Let it go." And we got to a place where it was over. And I asked him this morning, I said to him, as a matter of interest, do you feel that I carried that with me in relationship to you for the rest of the day? Did you feel
Yes.
like there was a lack of love towards you, a lack of respect towards you? He said, no. He said, once you came and apologized, he said, I know it was over with you. He said,
Yes.
you weren't the one who kept carrying it on. Someone else did. Okay. And I was trying to explain, that's what to the other son, that's what I do. I practice being aware all the time of what's going on with me. In what is going on inside, in my energy field, in relationship to everything else that's going on. And do I screw up 30 times a day? And I'm probably exaggerating. I probably screw up about 10 times a day now. Okay, but and that could be sometimes where I get caught in my own taking and believing what I'm feeling and thinking is real.
Yep.
And then I just, see what's going on, and it's like, okay, let it be, because this is not who I am. This is my physical.
Yeah.
This is my body. This is my personality. This is my physical identity. It has nothing. It's temporary.
Yeah.
And
it's not who you are, as you
no,
say.
it's not who I am.
Who you are.
And
At
not who
essence,
and
it's
I don't,
not who you are.
And I don't have to be that in that moment.
No.
Okay. I'm not saying it's easy. No one said it was easy. Someone once said it was it was harder than getting a camel through the eye of a needle, or the eye of the whatever it was, which is a great metaphor for it. Because it isn't easy. But I notice for me, I love living my life like that. And it's made an enormous difference. I think we've touched on being suicidal when you're a teenager. It's not fun. I've got a very good friend of mine who I grew up with. We were teenagers together, 13, 14, 15. Those were pretty impressionable years, 16. Inseparable. And I remember what an amazing... I looked at him and I thought, God, I'd love to be him. Mm-hmm. All the girls were willing to get undressed for him, All the guys wanted to be like him. And I can remember how I wanted to die. That was my prayer, I wanted to die.
Well,
and
because he was...
No, not because of him. But that's what I was going through as a teenager.
Yeah, right, okay.
But the story goes with him is that I went for a period of time, we moved from where we lived to somewhere else, another country. And I can remember we used to send each other the old cassette tapes.
Oh, yes.
That's how we communicated. We would I would tape and send it to him, and him and his girlfriend at the time would send me a tape of what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
And I can remember years later, where he said to me, I still have the tape where you said you wanted to die in it. And he said it was so heartbreaking hearing it.
Oh, God.
And then I was 18 and I had to go into the army in the country I grew up in. It wasn't a choice. I didn't want to be there. And I still had that. I wanted to die. I saw people die. I should have died. I had three clear events that took place that I, by all accounts, should have been dead.
Wow.
And I wasn't dead. I was captured by the enemy on the 29th of October 1976 and put against a wall to get shot.
Wow.
And it did have me think, because here was the person who was wanting to die. Okay? And I had an enemy soldier. I fell asleep in an ambush. And an enemy soldier walked within a foot of my head. Now, according to other more experienced officers than me, than I wasn't, said to me, one or two things happened. Given the density of that bush, it is physically possible for someone in the middle of the night to walk past you and not seen you. But they said what's more likely is they chose not to kill you because it would have given away their position.
Right.
But that was pretty close. And then my third event is I'm sitting in the back of a military vehicle and we're going along in kind of danger zone, and we got the alert that we needed to jump off the vehicle while it was moving and take cover. And I didn't realize a piece of metal had got stuck, like wire metal, had run right through where my trigger was. So as I lifted my rifle to jump, I pulled the trigger, and I could feel the bullet go past my head.
Wow.
Okay. Needless to say, those events all happened in a short space of time, had quite an impact on my on my psyche. But at the same time as that, I think after, took about 2 weeks when I suddenly realized what the hell was going on and what had happened, and I went into shock. But before I went into the shock, I was acutely aware of, this is really interesting, because I'm the one who's, I want out. I don't want this life. I think they would have diagnosed me. In those days, I'm not sure they actually had a clinical definition of depression, okay? But that's how I would have been diagnosed had I gone to a traditional psychologist, and I would have been put on medicine, I would have been put on tablets, or whatever. I'm so happy that never happened to me, because I wanted to find a way. I always knew I always was determined. I knew I would find a way out of this.
So did you have, when those events happened, where you could have died but you didn't die, did that wake you up to the fact that you wanted to live?
It didn't wake me up so that I wanted to live as much as in a way it did, but my way of thinking of it was, I knew through my relationship with God,
yes,
that I would find a way through this.
Right.
That was how I was going to live. I would find a way to get through the state.
Depression.
Yeah. And I did and when I did live a pretty decent life afterwards, it kicked back in later in life, much later. It surprised me. Actually,
Right.
It kicked in.
What, the depression did?
Yeah, the depression kicked in again, probably, it kicked in about roughly 20 years later. Okay. And it kicked in after I had walked what I thought was a real spiritual path. I was a devout, going to seminars, doing all the stuff.
Meditating.
Yeah, it kicked in, and it kicked in really badly. And I thought, wow, I cannot believe this has come back in again. And I was like, I just went inwards, lost all interest in everything.
Was it triggered by anything in particular, do you think? Or you suddenly found yourself there?
There were certain things that had taken place, but I'm not sure. It was interesting. I think it was more to do with the fact that the spiritual path I was walking, as what I considered pretty like a loyal, devout, enthusiastic follower, my call, the contrast, my relationship with the contrast, my call had not changed. So to some extent, if you want to say, had my faith gone? Well, I don't know, because I still believed in God. I knew there was a way. But I think what had happened was a series of events that took place where I thought I'd found my path. I thought I'd found my people. I thought I'd find my new family. I thought I'd found my salvation. Mm-hmm. And the universe took me out of all of those events, those things. Okay? And it's interesting because I never left any of those environments. And that was in 3 different countries, by the way. And I never left any of them out of choice in the sense that I chose to leave. But events triggered it that I had to leave. And it kind of shocked me in a way, because I thought, well, this is my path, my spirituality. But what it made me, at the time I didn't realize, but what actually the universe was doing when I look back on it, was the universe was saying, look, this ain't working for you, because this isn't the path. The spiritual path you're walking right now, which includes, by the way, included some very famous teachers that are around still to this day. And the universe was telling me they ain't going to give it to you.
Right.
But I didn't know. But at the time, what I was left with was this, in immense sense of depression. I mean, I remember talking to my elder sister about it at the time. By the way, you're talking about someone who was already 38, so I wasn't young, okay? And my sister, she said, I'm stunned that it's come back and it's going on again. And, and I'm horrified. I don't know how to help you. It's so sad. And I, was ready to check out.
Wow.
Again, and it was quite a shock because at this stage of my life, I had already had a successful career in more than once, in a way. The path could have been there for me and all that stuff. I had, the contrast was overwhelming. By contrast, I mean the feelings of despair, futility. But I never gave up. I always knew there would be a way. And within about a year or two, I never felt depressed again. That was really bizarre. Something happened inside me. And when I look back now, I didn't know at the time. What happened inside me was I started to internally commit to my path of spirituality with the universe, not someone else's. I hadn't found it yet fully, but I started to, for the first time, say, okay, if the universe is saying, even these people right now who are highly regarded, making fortunes, teaching this, aren't going to be your teacher. Okay? They're not going to be my teacher.
So it was literally go within.
Yes. Right. So that's when that started. And when I made that decision that I knew I would find it, I was not going to give up. My depression went, not the contrast. And that was interesting. You see, I always thought the contrast would go. And I think that's what's the truth, that if most people who sometimes suffer from mental stuff or depression, or even people on a spiritual path, told the truth, what they really want is the contrast to go. They don't like feeling the negative emotions of being in a physical body. And that's, coming back to my conversation this morning with my son, I said to him, I've never said to you, you're not going to feel that. You may have heard it, and not that saying that he was thinking that. I said, but what I'm trying to get you to understand is that it reminds me of, I think it was Psalm 28, David's Psalm. Yea, thou walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. That always stuck with me, because what it always reminded me was the physical journey is literally a journey of the shadow of death. You're going to die. But while we are here, all the time there's a shadow hanging over us, the contrast. It's not easy. But what I said to him is, but it's now understanding that that's not only who I'm not, but who I am, which is more important. And I said, this is what I want you to really understand. Who you are is an extension of the source energy that creates all that is. I said, look at that magnificent oak tree out there. It is an extension of source energy. Okay? It is, in many ways, you could say, it's the God energy, but it's just been a tree. All right? The beautiful dog that shared our lives for a long time was an extension of the God energy. Okay? Where he was more fortunate than us in some respects is he didn't have some of our faculties that become the problem, our human faculties. His brain and his way...
Dog?
Yeah. He was just purely connected to source energy with a little bit of interference because the domestic animals learn to be around human beings. And because they do have a brain that works to a certain capacity, they take on some of our stuff. What actually works more phenomenally in them is source energy. They're in tune with stuff because they are source energy. They're connected. They know when there's danger in the air. It's their sense. We sometimes try and make it out something whether it's not.
Do you think then that the negative feelings and the contrast within those, do you think you feel like they are that you take them personally.
Well, I did for all my life because that's
Yeah.
what we do. Because we do, where we identify with them. Everyone
yeah,
does.
yeah.
It has
But-
to be that.
But it sounds as though because you're so willing to let them go much quicker, it sounds as though that identifying with them is not as strong.
Oh, absolutely, and that's
You know.
what made the difference.
And it's just like they are, having negative emotions is information.
It's information on the something I want, and I'm not at the moment experiencing it, and I'm not aligned with my source to have it.
Correct.
That's what it's telling
That's
us
it.
all the time.
That is
it's that.
contrast, yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah,
Okay, it's information.
yeah,
It is information saying there's something I must desire, and that desire is my soul's desire. This notion that you have to suppress all these desires
Yeah.
in the name of God is insane. Okay.
So it's the information, the negative emotion, the information. I think that even the word negative, we have a judgment about those, about the fact that we shouldn't feel those.
Absolutely.
That actually that's a bad thing to be feeling.
Or we should feel that, because you get some psychologists, will tell you, yeah, you must feel those things. Right now you should be angry because they've been disrespectful of you. They don't like you. They don't like you because of what your race, your religion, your sexual preferences.
Oh, yeah, that's
and they
all
tell
that.
you they
Yeah.
should. Well, both ways are actually nonsense.
Yeah.
They're going to lead to. There is no happy ending to an unhappy journey. It's really simple. If I'm feeling bad and I make a decision as a result of feeling bad, no good can come out of it because that's not the source energy and it's not the God energy. That's. I'm not saying. By the way, I'm saying that's how I have chosen to live my life. I'm not telling anyone else that they should.
But even in the various hints and tips about how to live your life, people say don't send an email when you're angry.
Yeah, that's a good one. But that's. But
I mean, that's a simple way of relating to it.
but
that
because
you-
it's common sense.
It is
All
common
right.
sense.
But we don't apply common sense, sadly, when it comes to something that's really affecting us, that we really want. Okay,
No.
and we have, we all have desires. Remember, every human being on this planet, every being on this planet wants freedom and wants autonomy. Remember that,
Yeah.
because that is the birthright, the only right of every soul. All the other rights we've put onto it legally and through everything else is nonsense. Actually, they don't exist in spirit. They don't exist in the universe. There is no such a thing as human rights. In fact, it's what I'm choosing to live my life by and talking to my kids about is, from the human consciousness, you have no rights other than to give them up. You want that right, give up your perception and start getting on a new one. Repent. Change your
Yeah.
perception.
Yeah.
Okay. Start understanding universal law. It's marvelous in that it is pure. It's not complicated. But what we find hard to handle, it's not fair in what we think is fair. It's not, you can't manipulate it. Okay? And we don't like that as human beings because you can't control it.
Mm-hmm.
And remember one thing, it's all about, of course I want to control everything. I'm aware of that throughout the day. But it takes an incredible amount of awareness to get that that's what all it is. At the bottom of it is my human consciousness is losing control in that moment, and that's why I get crazy. I said to my son, when you strike out, it's because you can't control your environment when you hit it. So you get crazy, okay? And when we start to blame or make excuses or something. It's that simple. That's all we do. Everyone does that, okay?
Yeah.
I didn't make that up. I'm sorry to tell you that, all right? I don't like it some days, because some days it is unfair.
Yeah.
It's unfair that something happens that the literal I can't control it is someone may die that's important to us. Or someone may not be able to do something they think they want to do. It's just not going to happen. Every time they try to do it, it just doesn't happen. And maybe it's not meant to be, because maybe it's not meant to be part of their soul's journey. So sometimes I have to clean up for myself what's my desire, really? Is it coming from my soul, or is it really or is it just coming from my ego? All right?
Yeah, interesting.
Because what's underneath it is, I think eventually it's going to give me some form of freedom or autonomy. And that's why I'm trying to control it, okay? But it's not actually about the expression of my spirit. So that's what I do as I go into my life.
That's
I
interesting.
practice, trying to be conscious and aware. And the awareness is such an important part, because without the awareness, I cannot change or fix anything that I want to. Okay? I won't find my peace.
No.
I won't find the love and the joy that's already there. I'll find it in moments, but it'll be fleeting. Because I will think it's something to do with what's going on in the physical world. Someone else gave it to me.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, I'm not saying this for everyone. I understood eventually that because of the path I walked of depression and these things, and there are others out there who are having that, they need to maybe pay a bit more attention. It goes back to when my wife said, who's this audience for? It's for those who have ears for it. You see, someone whose life is pretty decent for the most part, but they have their daily contrast and their angst, and there really isn't a driving desire, but they want to be more spiritual, or they want to be more godly. What's going on in the world is perfect. That's why they're doing it. It's going to give them what they want. It's going to feed them. It's going to feed the part that needs, during the week I go around and do what I do, and then on a weekend I go to my temple or my seminar, and I get jacked up and I feel motivated for a few days and I feel good. And as soon as the person comes up the mountain with shoes that I don't like and a joss stick that smells different from the one I've got, I go back to it, but I can go next weekend and do it again. I live that way. Okay. Now, I wanted something different. I really wanted to live my life with more love and more peace. And there were many things I had to give up. I had to practice giving up, and we can talk about that. But, giving up, I said to my son this morning, practice every day, allowing yourself to be who you really are. And we'll talk, he said, can you tell me more of what that means? And I said, practice letting other people have the path they're on. Let them be. Even if it's not the path you agree with. Even if you know better, let them be. Love them being on that journey, but you don't have to get involved in it. It's not your business, and it's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Practice. So he said to me, okay, so you're saying to me, if someone's doing something and it's upsetting me, I said, yeah, deal with the upset. What's upsetting you about what they're doing? What is it that they're doing that's causing you pain, that you feel you need to give up your connection to God or your source? What is so important about what they're doing that you're willing to give up your own soul for them? And if it comes down to, because I feel like my own insecurity about my worth and my life, then own that. Because they can't give it to you. No one will give you that in the end. Let them be. Let them be. Practice being who you are. That's what I was telling him. Practice being who you are. Because at the moment I said, I can see all the restraints you hold that hold yourself back. Because you do worry about, you don't want to upset anyone. You don't want to offend anyone. You don't want to get it wrong. I said, that's why you're a good kid. You're a good guy. But I said, now start looking at it deeper. I said, is there anything that you really want? Is there any desire you really want that is going to be cheating, stealing, killing, abusing, oppressing, damaging any other person? There's 6 things that are going on every single day in the society of ours. Okay? I'll repeat them. There are, because I may have missed some.
Yeah.
Lying, cheating, bullying, stealing, killing, all in the name of God, all in the name of something good, all in the name of something righteous. But people are doing this. Good people are doing this to other people all day. I said, are you doing it? Is anything that you want to express yourself that is going to do that? He said, no. I said, so the worst thing you may do is some pitcher's going to pitch to you and you're going to hit a home run. And I said, I can tell you something now. If that pitcher is half a decent human being, he will have respect for you, actually. And there may be banter and there may be some upset. But you're not abusing him, you're not killing him, you're not taking anything from him. So let it be.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, have fun.
Yeah.
You know, I said, you're not taking it away, you're not... And I said, if there's anything I'm doing that is trying to stop you from being yourself, tell me.
Yeah.
And then let everyone else be. You know, if most people went through a week of practicing that, I'm going to let myself express my love and my joy, whatever it is I want. And I'm going to let everyone else be on their path. And I'm not going to mind my own business.
Yeah.
And that is by being inside, being aware of when they're doing that, what does it trigger in me that I'm still holding as a judgment against myself. Because that's what's stopping me from expressing who I really am.
Tricky.
Yeah. Interesting though, isn't it?
It is. It is.
By the way, you know, one of my sons said, yeah, but Dad, you know, I resonate with all of this. I practice, and I fail every day and da-da-da. But he said, okay, what if you're wrong? So I said, okay, so let's assume that the way the world's going right now is right, because that's what we're really talking about. I'm saying maybe there's some different information we need, a different context we need to start, like, operating under. I said, is it so great what's going on out there? I said, is it really working?
Yeah.
I said, so here I am saying, I'm just chosen to walk a different path. I don't know. Look, I don't know, because I don't know for a fact that when we die, we don't just become compost. Okay? I don't know that for a fact.
Sure.
And I haven't met many people yet who really know for a fact that when you die, God is sitting there, and on the right-hand side of God are certain other prophets and people that we're told, you know, and they are going to judge us, and we're either going to go to hell or we're going to get a seat in heaven. I don't know that for a fact either, and I don't know anyone who knows that for a fact. But it's amazing how many people are willing to go to war and kill and do things on that basis. So I said to him, so, you know, what do you think? And he said, no, I like the way you're going. Because he said, it makes common sense, what I'm talking about, which is if someone's doing something you don't like and they won't change it, let them be. Move on. But ask yourself first, what is it that they're doing that I don't like? Why?
Why don't I like it?
Yeah, because I'll normally find out that what they're doing is they're triggering in me an insecurity about who I am, which is I'm really a spiritual being, and it's actually not my problem, and it's not my business because I can still love them. That's their path. Let them have their path. You may have had it in another life. I may have had that path in a life. And I got to where I got to by having the path. So let them have their path.
Yeah.
Who am I to decide that they shouldn't have that path? All right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Very good.
Gracias.